Hello students, welcome to class 7. So in today's class, I will take up the chapter, the very first chapter from your honeycomb book, and the chapter is 3 questions. This story is written by a very famous Russian writer, Leo Tolstoy. And Leo Tolstoy is considered to be one of the best writers in world. In this story, as the very name suggests, it upholds 3 basic questions of life. If anyone knows the answers of these 3 questions, it is believed that it would make the person a successful one. So that is the basic outline of this story. Let's go deep into the story. 3 questions. The thought came to a certain king that he would never fail if he knew 3 things. These 3 things were: what is the right time to begin something, which people should listen to, and what is the most important thing for him to do. So at the very beginning of the story, we find a king who is very much anxious, to know the answers of 3 questions. And what are those 3 questions? The 3 questions are: what is the right time to begin something? The very first question is the right time. Right time. What is the right time to do something? And the second is the right people. The second question is which people should he listen to? Which people he should always listen to? And the third question is what is the most important thing for him to do? So that is the right action. These 3 questions. And these 3 questions, he believes, if he knows the answers of these 3 questions, it would be helpful for him. And the king believes that he will never fail in any of his action. The king, as the story unfolds, we come to know, sent messengers throughout his kingdom, promising a large sum of money to anyone who would answer these 3 questions. So in search of these answers, the king sent messengers to every nook and corner of his kingdom, expecting solid, suitable, relevant, logical answers from his people. Many wise men came to the king, but they all answered his questions differently. Students, we all know people have different mindset. People have different perspectives. The way I think, obviously, it will not match with the way another person thinks. So, many people came there and they presented different answers in different manner. In reply to the first question, some said, the king must operate a timetable and then follow it strictly. Only in this way, they said, could he do everything at its proper time. Others said it was impossible to decide in advance the right time for doing something. The king should notice all that was going on and avoid foolish pleasures. To answer the first question, the people said the king should maintain a timetable, and as per the timetable, king should act accordingly. Secondly, in the answer of the same question, many said that it was impossible to decide in advance the right time. So you cannot decide which time is right for which action. You should act as it comes. The king should notice all that was going on and avoid foolish pleasures. The king should not indulge in insignificant pleasures because he is a king. And students, we all know a king is the head of the state. So a king must be responsible. A king must be very, very hardworking, thoughtful. And always do whatever seems necessary at that time. So whenever anything comes to the king, he should think on it and he should do whatever is required and whatever is necessary. Yet others said that king needed a council of wise men who would help him act at the proper time. Other people advised that the king should make a council of wise men. This is called, you can say, a group of ministers or a council of ministers. And we all know, boys, a king is always advised by his ministers in conducting his royal administrative duty. That is quite natural. The ministers, the wise men, they will advise the king. They will suggest the king. They will give ideas to the king. This is as said by many eminent people in answering this thing, the right time. This was because one man would find it impossible to decide correctly without help from others, the right time for every action. Because those people said it was difficult for a single man to decide everything correctly. So the man must resort to the help of other people. There is no shame. There is no shame in taking help from other people. One person cannot be the master of all. So the king should take the advice of other people. That is the answer given by eminent people of the first question. Secondly, but others said there were some things which could be urgent. These things could not wait for the decision of the council. In order to decide the right time for doing something, it is necessary to look into the future. So the other school of thought, they raise a very pertinent, a very important, a very relevant point. That is, there are many things for a king. There are many things for a king, and those things require urgent attention, urgent intervention. So the king cannot wait for the ministers to get their advice on that urgent matter, because those are urgent. Those things must be resolved quickly. So what will happen to those things? And only magicians could do that. The king therefore would have go to the magicians. So while deciding on an urgent thing, the king needs to look into, the king needs to contemplate about the future prospect of that action. And tomorrow is promised to no one. No one knows what will happen tomorrow. So there must be magicians. This is a very humorous slide here. In the answer to the second question, that is the right people. Who are the right people? In answer to the second question, some said the people most necessary to the king were his counselors. Counselors means the member of that council. The king should be surrounded by those people who would constantly, who would always provide advice, guidance and suggestion, ideas to the king. Others said the priests. A few others chose the doctor, and yet others said that his soldiers were the most necessary. So there is a huge variety of answers. To the third question, some said science, others choose fighting, yet others religious worship. And what is the right action? Some people said it should be science, some people said it is worshipping, some people said it is fighting. So there is no consensus on the issue. And the king obviously was not satisfied with the answers. As the answers to his questions were so different, the king was not satisfied and gave no reward. Instead, he decided to seek the advice of a certain hermit who was widely known for his wisdom. So as the answers from these people did not satisfy the king, so the king was determined to get the answers. So the king decided he would take the advice of a certain hermit. A hermit is a person who leads a very simple life but having a high level of thinking. And the hermit was widely known for his wisdom, for his intelligence, for his erudition. The hermit lived in a wood, in a forest, which he never left. He saw no one but simple people, and so the king put on ordinary clothes before he reached the hermit's hut, and the king left his horse with his bodyguard and went on alone. Now you can ask me, Sir, why did the king go there alone? Because the hermit would refuse to meet if he knew that it was the king. And obviously, whenever and wherever a king goes, he is followed by his bodyguards. So the king put on a very simple attire, a simple dress, and he gave up all his bodyguards. He appeared just like a simple man, and he went to the hermit because he wanted help from the hermit. Sorry. He wanted advice from the hermit, and hermit would not advise if the king is followed by his bodyguards, by his other people. As the king came near to the hermit's hut, he saw the hermit digging the ground in front of his hut. He greeted the king and continued digging. So when the king went there, he found that the hermit was digging the ground. He welcomed the king. He greeted the king and went on digging and went on doing the same thing. The hermit was old and weak, and as he worked, he breathed heavily. It was an old man. And students, you can expect that when an old man is working, the man would be very, very tired. He would start breathing. He would start panting heavily. The king went up to the hermit and said, I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer 3 questions. And the 3 questions are, as he says, how can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? Who are the people I needed most? And what affairs are the most important? So again, the king asked these 3 questions. What is the right time to do anything? Who are the right people? And what should be the right action at any time? He asked these questions to the hermit with the expectation that the wise hermit, using his wisdom, using his erudition, would answer these questions logically, and the answers would satisfy the king. Now see what happens. The hermit listened to the king, but did not speak. He went on digging. You are tired, said the king. Let me take the spade and work in your place. When the king saw that the hermit was tired digging the ground, he took the spade. Boys, this is a normal respect. This is a normal respect we all people, we should show to our elders. And the king did the same thing. He took the spade from the hermit because the hermit was tired. He was old and the hermit was tired of digging the ground. That's why. Let me take the spade and work in your place. Thanks, said the hermit. Giving the king his spade, then he sat down on the ground. When the king had dug 2 beds, he stopped and repeated his questions. The hermit gave no answer, but stood up, stretching out his hand for the spade and said, now rest me and let me work. When the king has completed digging 2 beds, 2 spots, the hermit took the spade and let me work. Now, and told the king that you rest, now I will work. But the king did not give him the spade and continued to dig. But the king refused to give the spade and continued digging. 1 hour passed, then another. Moments went on. The sun went down behind the trees, and at least the king stuck the spade into the ground and said, I came to you, wise man, for an answer to my questions. If you can give no answer, tell me, I will return home. Now, a sense of impatience, a sense of restlessness can be found in the king. He had become restless. He had become impatient. And he asked the hermit, if you can give the answer, then answer me. Otherwise, simply tell me, I will go. Here comes someone running, said the hermit. And it is at this point, someone arrived at the hut of the hermit. And boys, students, please listen. It is from this point that the story takes a new turn. We will enjoy this new turn as the story unfolds. The king turned round and saw a bearded man running towards them. His hands were pressed against his stomach, from which blood was flowing. He saw a man with full beard came there. He saw a man with full beard running when he came there. And he was bleeding profusely. From his, at the place of his stomach, from there, it was bleeding profusely. When he reached the king, he fainted and fell to the ground. He was so injured, he was so tired, that the moment he came to the king, he fainted. The word fainted means he became unconscious. He lost his consciousness and he fell to the ground. The king and the hermit removed the man's clothing and found a large wound in his stomach. Just out of courtesy, normal hospitality, the king and the hermit both, they started nursing the wounded man. The king washed and covered it with his handkerchief, but the blood would not stop flowing. The king redressed the wound until at last the bleeding stopped. So it was bleeding profusely, boys. So what did the king do? He simply bandaged it with his own handkerchief, and then again he redressed it. Suppose I bandage it here, it is bleeding again. So I change the bandage and put a new bandage again so that it would stop bleeding. This is what the king did. And it was quite natural. Any person at that moment would help the injured man. If any wounded man, if any injured man comes to your house seeking for help, will you not help? Obviously, we will all help. This is the basic humanity that teaches us. The man felt better and asked for something to drink. The king brought fresh water and gave it to him. By this time the sun had set and the air was cool. The king, with the hermit's help, carried the wounded man into the hut and laid him on the bed. The man closed his eyes and lay quiet. The king, tired by his work and the work he had done, lay down on the floor and slept through the night. So the wounded man was taken into the hut and he was allowed to sleep there. He was made to sleep there because he needed rest. And it was all done by the king with the help of the old hermit. When he awoke, it was several minutes before he could remember where he was and who the strange bearded man lying on the bed was. So after that the king went on sleeping. When he awoke, he remembered what happened to him, where he was, and who is this bearded man. "Forgive me," said the bearded man, in a weak voice when he saw that the king was awake. "I do not know you, have nothing to forgive you for," said the king. And when both the king and the man woke up, the man asked for forgiveness from the king. And here, please understand, boys, the king was utterly surprised. Why was the king surprised? Because the king did not know the man. And this unknown man was seeking forgiveness from the king. For what? "You do not know me, but I know you," said the injured man. "I am that enemy of yours who swore revenge on you because you put my brother to death and seized my property." And then the young man, the injured man, revealed his identity. He said, "I am that man whose brother was punished by you." And the man came there to take revenge of that. Now he revealed his identity. Just see the line, boys. "I am that enemy of yours who swore revenge on you." Who swore means who took oath, who promised that he would take revenge. "Because you put my brother to death and seized my property." Then he went on saying, please note, "I knew you had gone alone to see that hermit, and I made up my mind to kill you on your way home. But the day passed and you did not return. So I left my hiding place and I came upon your bodyguard, who recognized me and wounded me." So this is what was said by the injured man. He was the brother of someone who was punished by the king, and he planned that he would take revenge of his brother's death. So what did he do? He came there with the hope, with the plan that whenever the king would be alone, he would kill the king. But unfortunately, by the stroke of luck, the bodyguards of the king recognized him and they stabbed him, they attacked him. And this is why the man was bleeding. So let me call it a day. I will finish my class here, and in my next recording, in my next video, I will take up the same chapter right from here, and then I will explain the answers of these three questions. Why these three questions are important and how the hermit would answer, I will explain the answers in my next video. Thank you, boys. Take care. Goodbye.